Well, Steve, let's get right into it. As far as I see it, we're here to talk about the defining moment in your golf career, the thing everybody thinks about when they think of Steve Scott, your appearance on the Club Pro Guy podcast.
Yeah, that was an honor.
So let's talk about that a little bit though, because how that experience actually went down. I mean, I was listening to that and I'm just thinking, how do you get through this without just cracking up the whole time? How much was edited out when he's talking about striping his burner bubble driver that he's currently hitting, that type of stuff.
Yeah, it's really interesting. There is a lot of editing. I'm
Yeah.
fortunate enough. I've heard his voice. I've seen him. I'm sworn to secrecy for sure.
Okay, that
But
was my next question.
yes, yes. So Club Pro Guy is so funny. But it's actually when he talks and he gives you the question, it's actually in my mind it's actually more funny when you obviously hear it with the voice being masked.
Yeah.
And I think he kind of like changes the pitch a little bit, and it's really funny. But yeah, certainly an honor to be asked questions by the CPG himself. Man, what a guy, what a brand he has created. Just a tremendous guy. It's so much fun.
Yeah, it's amazing. So anybody that didn't hear that, I'm sure there's a lot of CPG fans listening as us as club pros. It's a unique humor that sometimes we get only we get the joke, I think. But
It's an infinite amount of material he has. There's no question. I
exactly,
mean, I always thought the best. I was a head pro.
yeah,
Certainly all your listeners are head pro. I was a head pro at a traditional club for nine, or a couple different clubs for 9 years, and I always thought there could be a sitcom in a golf
right,
shop. I mean, just we could do so much great theater. It'd be
right.
unbelievable.
It's funny now. I'm having more and more members now. This has been going, he's been out for a number of years now, and I have more and more members come to me. They're wearing the gear, they've got the t-shirts and the head covers and the hats and everything. And I'm almost like, whoa, whoa, whoa! It's not quite as funny when the members are bringing it to me. We're kind of laughing about you guys behind the scenes, But
Buy my logo, darn it.
yeah,
that's what
exactly,
you're saying.
exactly.
That's what you're saying.
I guess I could get it. I should just start selling it in the shop, right? So they'd
There,
all buy
there,
it, right?
there you go. There you go.
Right. All right. Well, if he's listening, Club Pro Guy, if you're listening, let's do a wholesale deal. I'll start selling it in the shop. So, um, but in all honesty, we are here to talk about your career, and I've been looking forward to speaking with you about your career. And obviously, we're going to talk about the '96 Amateur. But I've had you on my list of guests, prospective guests, for a long time, and I always kind of in my head said, well, hey, I'd love to talk to Steve, but I'm not so sure he wants to talk about the '96 USAM that's been kind of following him around forever. And then you went and wrote a book about it. So I guess now it's open season.
Open season. Swing away.
All right. So, well, congrats on the book. When does the book come out?
Officially May 18th.
Yeah.
So I will have it in my hands, the hardcover, hopefully in about a week. But yeah, May 18th is when it comes out, and really excited. Man, it took about 15 months to get it all done, and it was just it was really cool to go back in time. And I mean, it's certainly a moment that I've talked about for 25 years now. This being the
Yeah.
25th anniversary, and I've done it all really without a book, and now I'm going to be talking about it for the next 25 years plus with a book. So,
Right.
it was one of those great moments in golf history, and I threw everything I could at the guy who would ultimately be the greatest player of our generation and arguably the greatest player of all time. And what a moment, and certainly something, so many things that happened there that I was very proud of.
And as you should be. Let's put some of this in context for because it has been 25 years, and some of our listeners maybe they were just being born or they were just a few years old. It's been that long. But hey, you're about the same age as me, so I feel old too. So I watched this happen from my dorm room in college. Um, So let's put it in context. I mean, there hasn't been an amateur come around with the hype that Tiger had. This had the hype around him was what you would expect now about Tiger Woods, but it hadn't been seen before. What was it from your perspective? I mean, you're playing college golf at that same time. Um, give everybody a little kind of your perspective about what Tiger was back then.
Well, Tiger Woods really was. I mean, it is, the day after we played, he turned professional and hello world, and he was off to the races and ended up winning the Masters 8 months later. But I was paired with him. It was kind of a fortuitous pairing, actually. About 8 months prior to our match out at Pumpkin Ridge during the finals of the Amateur, and we were paired together in a collegiate event at Palmetto Dunes near the Hilton Head area.
Hmm.
And we were it was the final round. We were both playing pretty well in the tournament. And I find out I'm playing with Tiger the final day. I'm like, oh, this is really cool. I mean, I wanted to see this thing up close and see
Yeah.
what it was all about. And one thing I remember about that day, he didn't even play that great, and he shot two under par. It was like piece of cake. One of the things I'll always remember, when he had these butter knife 3-iron, those Mizuno MP29s,
Yeah.
that if you miss hit it just that little bit, you're everywhere. And he would hit this 3-iron. He'd reach these par fives, and he'd hit like this towering 3-iron from like 240, and shots that people over water, like it was coming
Yeah.
down like your 6 or 7 iron. And he would just hit these shots that were just unbelievable. And I got so caught up in his game, and I went
Hmm.
out there and I shot 80 myself. And so, I went from playing well to just like getting sucked into the Tiger vortex there for
Hmm.
4 hours. And all of a sudden, I wasn't playing my game. So fast forward 8 months later to that finals of the USAM, that match I had before was so important for me to understand. Like, part of my game plan that day was I was not going to watch him hit a golf shot. I was going to obviously could
Hmm.
listen to the ball coming off a club face, and it was like a gunshot coming off of the driver face. I mean, it was so loud, and it was he'd fly it over 300 yards with the old technology, and
Yeah.
so much speed. And so I just tried to make sure I didn't get caught up in his game at all. And that was the big game plan. But Tiger Woods, I mean, I knew it was going to be a really different day when we're standing on the first hole. It's a Sunday morning, kind of out in the farmland of 30 minutes west of Portland,
Yeah.
and you see the whole entire first hole, par four, about 420 yards. It was lined with people, side on both sides. And I'm thinking, well, shouldn't these people be at church, or shouldn't they be
Right.
somewhere? And they're out there watching this match, and I knew at that point that it was going to be a different day. And Phil Knight was out there in the gallery, and I saw Peter Jacobson. I saw, we're seeing like celebrities. Like, it was kind of one of those. It was just an unbelievable day.
Yeah, it was must see TV for golf fans. I mean, there wasn't a USAM like it before, and hasn't been one since. But Tiger was going for his third in a row. Had never been done, right? So he'd never lost a match in a USAM. He won 3 US juniors before that. This was all part of the hype. But Tiger, he beat a lot of people along the way in the previous amateurs. He won two previous ones in tight matches too, right? He had come back
Yeah,
at
very tight.
Sawgrass and then at Newport. What though was it about your match that you think captured people that we're still talking about it 25 years later?
Well, it's a great question. I think to preface my answer, though, to piggyback what you just said, I mean, Tiger has done so many great things and set so many precedents. The craziest stat that from his U.S. juniors and in through his U.S. amateurs, those 6 victories in a row that he had, will never be duplicated again in my mind.
Hmm.
Um, what he did, he went to the final hole or extra holes in every single match and never lost.
Wow, that I
He was
hadn't heard.
he went to a playoff. His very first U.S. junior at Bay Hill. He went
Hmm.
to a playoff against a guy named Brad Swetzky. He won on the 19th hole. The next year, he beat I guess he beat Mark Wilson in Boston. I think they went to the last hole. I think he might have won. He might have been one up or something,
Right.
or he might have been one down. But he always went to the last hole of the match. Trip Keeney, he went to the 36th hole of the match and ended up winning two up. Buddy Marucci, the same thing. He was one up and won the last hole. In mine, we were tied going to the very last hole, and we
Hmm.
tied the 36th hole and went to two playoff holes. Went to the 38th hole, but I think that oh gosh, I'm trying to remember what the original question was. I was
Just
getting off on that
what
good stat
captured
there.
everybody's
Yes, yes.
everybody's attention about this?
Yeah, what captured everybody's attention really, I think it just had so many storylines. Obviously,
Yeah.
Tiger going for three U.S. amateurs in a row, which had never been done. Playing against a guy like me, who it's a David versus Goliath sort of match, right? I mean,
Hmm.
it is Tiger Woods flying it over 300 yards, and I can fly it about 260, and he was always out driving me. If we both hit driver, he'd outdrive me by 50 or 60 yards. So I mean,
Yeah.
it wasn't even a fair fight really when it comes down to sheer distance. I had the upper hand on the greens. I putted better than him that day, and the hole was as big as a peach basket. But what really captured people's attention, I think, was I mean, I had my girlfriend caddying for me,
Yeah.
which not too many females at that time. You had, Nikki Stricker and Fanny Sunison for Faldo, and but not many caddies. And she's a very cute blonde, and
Yeah.
we got married a few years later, and we're married going on 22 years now. So it was this great David versus Goliath match. It was this love story. And then looking back on it now, I mean, it was the last amateur match that Tiger Woods ever played.
Hmm.
So you look at how he jumped into the professional ranks, and obviously what happened on the 34th hole of the match, the
Yeah.
sportsmanship, the integrity, all of those other storylines outside of the great play. I mean, there was epic flop shots, there was long eagle putts. I mean, it was this punch counter punch sort of situation that man, I mean, it was electric. I mean, what I heard afterwards that the ratings for our match were more than double of the PGA Tour that day, and they were playing the NEC World Series of Golf at Firestone.
Hmm.
So it turned out to be a pretty huge day.
Yeah, and it's now become to be what you expect of Tiger, and it's things of, it's the lore
Mm-hmm.
of Tiger Woods, the
Yep.
coverage that day. I mean, Johnny Miller was playing up every storyline that there was, and they really made it, entertaining. Plus the golf was thrilling. But let's talk
Yep.
a little bit about it there, just so everybody kind of can understand. I know there isn't a question you probably haven't been asked about it in 25 years, but we'll cut to towards the end of the second 18. You get up
Mm-hmm.
huge in the first 18, and you seriously outplayed Tiger in the morning. So you're five up as you move
Yep.
through the second 18. Now this is a question you've been asked all the time, but I still want to ask it. Your mindset at five up. I mean, is it possible to not get ahead of
Mm-hmm.
yourself being that far up on Tiger Woods at that point?
You know, at that moment, I don't feel like I did get ahead of myself. Knowing his track record, I knew that he was going to do something
Hmm.
and, jump into the phone booth and come out as Superman, essentially. And he did. There's not too many matches where if I said, Dean, you're five up and you're going to shoot two under par in the afternoon 18 and you're going to lose on a
Right.
USGA setup, thick rough, fast, firm greens, you're going to lose. You're going to say, no way.
Right.
And that is just what happened to me. I mean, Johnny Miller said it in the telecast. He said, 99 times out of 100, I win that match. But that one other time is the one special guy who we all know who just pulls miracles out. And he just continued to do it time after time and year after year, to VJ Singh, Ernie Els, Phil Mickelson. He took a trophy away from me that day. He
Hmm.
also, but he didn't take the millions of dollars, I guess, like he did from some of these other guys. But Tiger Woods has made, he's made golf great, and certainly if it wasn't for him in that moment, the match that we played surely wouldn't have had the magnitude that it did.
Hmm. So let's fast forward then, and you walk us through the 34th hole, and
Hmm. Hmm.
it's the reason why you
Hmm.
titled the book what you did, and it's what a lot of people remember from
Hmm.
this. But walk us through what
Hmm.
happened there.
Yeah. So I'm two up with three to play, and so if you think of the probabilities of it, I get a little into this in the book, but you could just let your mind race about the probabilities. Okay, the underdog, the guy who is the shorter hitter, the less heralded player who's never played at this level before. Uh, I have to be two up with three to play for the moment that happens on the green to even matter.
Hmm.
And so we get up there, and we both hit drivers, straightaway par four, about 440 yards. And he, I hit first. I had the honor, and I ripped it right down the middle, about 280. He gets up there and pummels this thing 53 yards past me. And so he's got sand wedge to the green. I've got 6 iron. And so I ended up driving it in like an old divot. Like it was just sitting down in this depression, which didn't help. It was on a little bit of a downslope, which didn't help. The pin was back right, which didn't help because I hit just nothing but right to left draw shots at that point.
Hmm.
So I needed to hit this high fade, and I didn't have the lie or the shot shape in my swing to do it. And so I blocked it in the right bunker, like I did actually in the morning 18. He gets up there and hits his sand wedge, one hops it off of the back first cut of rough. I mean, it hops
Hmm.
in the rough and then spins back down the hill to like 6 feet from the hole. And I'm like, okay, well,
Those
here
old golf
comes,
balls, right?
yeah, right,
Those old-
right. Like here comes Tiger, right?
yeah.
So I get up there, and my lie is so I can't really spin it that great, and so it comes out. I hit about 10 feet past the hole, and I'm getting up there, and looking at my putt. It's looking like just outside left putt, outside the cup, and his marker is smack dab in my line. And so,
Hmm.
like you would any day, you say, hey, just slide that over one, and he does, and I get up there, and just mind you, again, this moment doesn't happen unless now I make this putt, right? Like
Right.
what's going to happen a few minutes later does not, a few seconds later, really doesn't even matter if I don't make this par putt to force him to make his birdie and win the hole. And I get up there from 10 feet. I hit the most pure putt I could hit and went right in the center, would have gone in a
Right.
thimble. And I'm walking off to the side of the green, and where the next hole was, it was kind of to my right. And if the hole was the other way, I might have walked off the green a different way and not
Hmm.
noticed what he was about to do. And so I'm walking off to the side, and I kind of, out of the corner of my eye, I noticed that not enough time had passed for him to have gone through the process to remark his ball. And I just kind of, I just turned my head. I'm just like, hey, Tiger, you need to move that back.
Hmm.
And he had to stand up, go through his whole process because he was putting his ball down in the wrong spot, and which he admitted to 20 years later. I didn't really even
Yeah.
know till 20 years later that he totally forgot because he didn't
Right.
he didn't he
I
didn't
heard him say that.
he didn't want to admit it, but but he totally forgot. And so I walk off the green. He gets up there and he moves it back to the right spot. He makes the putt, and then he holds like a 35 footer on the next hole to square the match, and wins on the 38th hole.
Yeah.
But that moment right there, really, it's the reason why. I mean, it's preaching to the choir of golfers and golf
Hmm.
professionals of why we all love this game and why we all are involved in this game. Um, but really, it's a story of it's just that kind of that fresh reminder of, yeah, this is why golf is so great. And if I'm in front of and then all the professionals that listen to this podcast right now, I think that if you pass this story on to your junior golfers who certainly weren't alive when this match happened, and they understand why golf is different. This is
Yeah.
why golf is on this pedestal of all other sports, and as opposed to the referees are out there blowing whistles or throwing flags. Golf, we police ourselves. We are out there. There's a sportsmanship and integrity level that golfers. It's like that unwritten rule that unwritten thing that you sign, right?
Yeah.
That this is what, as a golfer, this is what you do. And so for that moment in time, being there for the game was very important to me because of a lot of other things that happened earlier in my life that you can read in the book. But it was just golf was there for me, and I was there for the game of golf, and it all worked out. Despite me winning the trophy that day, it all worked out pretty darn well.
Well, and I think by you doing that, I think for a lot of people, now this is something we always think to do. People even tell their opponent to put their marker back, even while they're putting it back, even when they're doing it.
Mhm.
People always say it now, and I feel like this really magnified that and really brought it to light because it was talked about, ever since. The thing that I kept thinking about was that in a match like that, you just hold a huge putt. It would have been so easy to be in your own world and just not even realize. And like you just said, you could have walked off a different part of the green
Y-
and just missed it. And forever, it wouldn't have
mhm.
mattered no matter what Steve Scott said. No, I didn't do it on purpose. Wasn't purposely forgetting to tell him to move it back. You would have been having to deal with that. Was he really, did he really you know, just forget to tell him. This was like you said, the David trying to take down the Goliath. This was his chance to beat Tiger Woods. And obviously you had, the foresight and everything to make sure that you told him to put it back, which is great. But it could have accidentally gone a different way, which would have been a shame.
It could have, and you're right. I think people could have said, "Hey, you did that on purpose," because it has been done on purpose
Hmm.
in matches, whether it's at the club level or at the national level. I mean, I've heard stories like that. They certainly make me shudder because
Yeah.
that's not the type of golfers that people that we want in this game for sure. Because it's a game of that honesty, right? And
Hmm.
there's really no other sport that I found that integrity and showing integrity and having sportsmanship is the first rule of the game, right? You
Right.
look in the rule book, it's in the first rule, and so it's pretty, in golf it's kind of rule of thumb, but and I'm preaching to the choir maybe again of the
Hmm.
professionals listening, but it's just if I had 100 players, 100 people in a room that were teetering between golf and maybe another sport, I think this story really really will resonate with them to help them understand, yeah, this is why I need to play golf, and even for their parents who are listening and
Hmm.
obviously guiding the children and the juniors. And I mean, this is everything that we want to have our kids grow up as. And I guess I learned the lessons from a young age and growing up in the game, and it was a reflex action for me. And I
Hmm.
guess my wish for everybody out there listening to this and reading the book, and that it is a reflex action for you, and it will be,
Hmm.
and for the future generations of the game, because this is what golf is about, and I never want people to lose that message.
Yeah, and just what you've gained, the positive repercussions from doing the right thing far outweigh w- a victory that could have been achieved that way. So doing the right thing, it's always the right thing to do is to do the right thing. So, uh, so,
Yes. Yeah.
so,
Yeah. As painful as it can be.
right. So obviously there's initial disappointment, right? Like you said, you had one hand on the trophy that day until Tiger took it from you. Let's fast forward a little bit. How much did that weigh on you? You still had a successful amateur career. You get to number one ranked amateur in the country. Was this something that haunted you for a little while, though?
There's certainly times where I thought about what if I would have won, what if, what if things would have gone differently, right? I certainly I wouldn't be human if I didn't think those things. I think that number one, the great thing that happened from that, getting to the finals, when you get to the finals of the U.S. Amateur, you're going to get an invitation to play at the Masters the next
Hmm.
spring, and so that was, I mean, that was already like I've already won before I
Right.
played the finals. I mean, I knew that. So that was like a super big bonus. Another thing I found out after that match was I was named to the World Amateur Team, which for the USGA, so it's to represent the United States. There was only four of us, it was myself, Joel Kreibel, Jerry Corville, and Jason Enlow, who went over to the Philippines a few months later and competed and played for the United States. Even a
Hmm.
smaller group than the Walker Cup team, and I made the Walker Cup team the next year as well. So there were so many great things that happened from that day that, I mean, I got sponsor invites to numerous PGA Tour events. There were so many things that were positive about that day. It was really hard to look at it as a negative. And obviously, Tiger going on and winning all the events that he did, it just showed me that I was supposed to be the one right there in that moment to help him, remind him to move his mark back, or to,
Hmm.
give him that really difficult match, that final. I don't know. There's fate that plays in a lot of things that happen in our lives, and it was certainly fateful. And yeah, I mean, to finish runner up and to not win the trophy that day was about the only thing I didn't win. I mean, I won. I
Hmm.
mean, I got the girl. I got I got so many things out of it that were so positive, and I played the best I could play under the most extreme pressure situation. I could take that away from me, with me, and it's something that I think about every compete. Honestly, I played I played, every which way that you would imagine playing if you were on national television and it was just you and another guy happened to be Tiger Woods. I didn't fold. I really didn't
Yeah.
fold, and that's something I will always be proud of.
Hmm. As you should be. So let's walk it through after that time.
Mhm.
So um, wrap up your college career. What happened after that? Immediate from after college, you tried to play professionally.
Yeah, so I turned pro in the fall of 1999. I finished my
Hmm.
eligibility at the University of Florida, and I turned pro. I played professional for 6 years. I won a couple times in the Canadian Tour. Made
Hmm.
it to PGA Tour qualifying finals at PGA West in 2002, but I only made it one time. So I just never performed at the PGA Tour level like I wanted to.
Yeah.
I played about 20 events over the course of my life out there, and only made a few cuts, and just never got to the success that I wanted to get to. And so in 2005, I mean, this is really ties into obviously what you're involved with now and your listeners, and I'm a PGA professional, and so
Hmm.
I decided to go down the PGA professional route and got a head pro job within 4 years. Was very fortunate. My name was called, and I got a job in the New Jersey section at the Ridge at Backbrook after working at Hidden Creek Golf Club for Ian Dalzell, who's a wonderful golf professional who in the
Hmm.
Philadelphia area at Huntington now, and getting a head professional job was great, and I did it. Went on and did that for 8 or 9 years at a couple different clubs. I moved to the Met section about three in 2012, I guess, and worked at a club called Paramount Country Club as a head professional there for 6 years. And so I certainly know all the ins and outs and the long days and the going from the lesson tee to the member guest meeting to the paying bills to all that. So
Right.
I know all the ins and outs that all your listeners go through every single day.
So as you started then your career becoming a PJ professional and getting in the club business, what did you see as your long-term outlook there, your long-term goal? Was it, and we'll talk about what you're doing now, but was it to become a head pro and settle down at a club for a while? Was that
Yeah, certainly. I thought about becoming a teaching professional.
Mhm.
Um, I, I, I kind of came to the conclusion that being a professional was maybe more of a luxury for a club, and not every club, I wouldn't have fit into every single club, and so, but every club basically needs a head professional to run the
Right.
operation, and so that was the route that I went down, where I could teach and I could still play, and I enjoyed all of it. I tried to become the best merchandiser I could. I learned from a national merchandiser of the year, and Greg Lecker at Canoe Brook in New Jersey, and Ian Dalzell was a section merchandiser of the year, and I knew that I had the playing side, and the teaching side was going to be pretty solid for me. I wanted to become a very well-rounded professional, and I mean
Mhm.
that was definitely my mission. And so I learned from a lot of great professionals who showed me the ropes, and got to be able to run a couple golf shops, and do that part of it too. So
And how many times did you end up talking about the 96 amateur in your in your days as a head pro? I'm sure it came up in interview processes and at member guests and things like that. I'm
yeah,
sure, right?
a, yeah, a lot for sure. Yes, yes, it was. It's certainly so. And you know what? I mean, that moment on the 34th hole,
Yeah.
it carried with me to every interview and to every. I mean, it's that hey, Steve Scott, he's the honest guy. He's the guy who's gonna
Mhm.
he's gonna make sure he's gonna do the right thing. And I think it's looking back at that moment. I mean, I was 19 years old at the time, and then I fast forward to the times where I'm in these interview processes, and I think it's just a lesson of you do the right thing as much as you can, and you work your tail off, and you do all the things you're supposed to do, whether somebody's looking or somebody isn't looking, and good things come your way. I'm really a believer in that, and yeah, it's definitely held true throughout my career, and very proud of that, and definitely carried with me.
So amongst what you're doing now, you also picked up a role as you were a commentator for Fox Sports, and I think now you're doing PGA Tour Live. So that's a big jump from playing golf and being a head pro. Now we're in front of people all the time, and I was holding the mic this morning in front of 100 people at an outing, but that's a little bit different than being on TV. So, how have you prepped yourself for that? How hard is it being doing golf on TV?
Right. Yeah. Aside from my roles with the Outpost Club, and now as the founder of the Silver Club Golfing
Yeah,
Society, I do have some time to get into the broadcasting space.
yeah,
I worked for Fox, so I do a few events a year for Fox, which was always challenging because all the USGA events that they covered were in the summer, in the heat of our
yeah.
season, of our 100-day war, right? So that was always difficult, and so. But yes, I love the broadcasting side of things. I could talk golf for hours upon hours, which I do, and now I get paid to do it.
Hmm.
But being with PGA Tour Live, and breaking with Golf Channel a little bit, doing some work. Actually, I'll be leaving at the end of this week to be the main analyst with George Savaricas on the Golf Channel production of the PGA Professional Championship down in Port St. Lucie.
Oh,
So
great.
really excited for that. And then there's another PGA Coaching Live channel that's going to happen at the PGA Championship. We're going to have a stage right at or a set right on the range at Kiowa, which is going to be really fun. We're going to be interviewing all the great coaches of the world, and
Hmm.
just helping all the viewers with their game. And so the broadcasting stuff is really fun. It definitely takes time, and I do a podcast myself called the Silver Club Podcast. And so I think doing all these these, obviously there's not the video portion on podcasting, but you start to practice on how to get a couple coherent thoughts together, and certainly helps you when you're out there talking in front of your member guests or in front of an outing, but all those things. I mean, public speaking is certainly a very important facet and role that the PGA professional plays. And for me to be able to carry the torch of the PGA professional in that realm, it's a lot of fun. And again, could talk golf for hours on end. So
If there's no substitute for the reps when you're out there and you're either in broadcasting or
mhm,
doing a podcast.
mhm,
I can attest to that.
mhm.
I've talked about it on here before. The first time I played myself back, I couldn't believe how bad I was. And I will and there's a lot less editing, not that there's none, but a lot less editing that I do these days than I did, in episode 1 and so, and I think it's important. It's important for PGA professionals to improve your communication, be able to talk out in front of everybody. It gives you good executive presence,
Mhm.
and certainly can help
Yeah.
you in the interview room. So I applaud you for getting out there and doing that because that's a challenge. But you mentioned Outpost Club, you mentioned Silver Club. So I'm curious about hearing about your role at Outpost. What's that? You made the
Mhm.
transition from Paramount to from the traditional head
Mhm.
pro position, moved the family, and are now working with the Outpost Club. So what does that job entail? It sounds intriguing. Sounds pretty fun.
Mhm. It's a fun. I mean, one of the toughest things I think for a PGA professional when you're moving up the ranks is to get a job in the geographical area of the world that you want to live. And that's, I think, that's very tough. And so we had no family up in the Northeast where I had my two head pro jobs. So we've now moved. I'm in the Carolinas PGA section now. I live in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and I am, I basically, when I'm home, I work out of home, and a lot of tons of emails, but I've traveled quite a bit now. I'm on the road
Hmm.
helping run events for the Outpost Club, and for this our competitive version of the Outpost Club now called the Silver Club Golfing Society. We basically set up events at places like Quaker Ridge or Inverness or Ballyneal or Pasatiempo, or we'll actually be at Rolling Green for a small group in June. So
Hmm.
we go to some really fun, architecturally significant venues, and we'll set up 16 to 24 player groups. And our Silver Club side, it's a single digit handicap, so it's definitely a little higher level of competition. Outpost
Hmm.
Club handicaps are a little bit higher, but both entities really have a wonderful sense for camaraderie and appreciation for great architecture, and it's just kind of the great golf courses in the country and in the world. And so we set up events at places like that for our members. And
Hmm.
so it certainly gives me a little different different role throughout the day. I'm not locked into the golf shop
Hmm.
and like I was. And but I would say that I work as hard or harder than I did, just because the emails could come any time of the day, and you got to
Yeah.
be on top of things, and just managing all of that, and then traveling. The travel of it can be always very challenging. So but it's fun. The office is different a lot, and I travel to a lot of great golf courses, and I play maybe a fraction more than I did, although running a lot of events. I don't
Yeah.
play all the time, but yeah, it's been fun to be a part of both of those groups.
Well, I think what I liked hearing about your career was just that, you've done a lot of different things. You've been able to take, this event that somebody could say was a negative. Oh, he almost beat Tiger, and really, you have such a positive outlook about it, and you've created, a great career for yourself. You're getting a chance to do stuff that you love, talking about golf, playing, running these events at great golf courses. You obviously love being around the game.
Mhm.
And I think for PGA professionals listening, I always like to talk to people about their career and what they've been able to do, because there are different paths and there are different roads that you can go down if you're proactive about it, and you're really out there seeking out things that you want to do. There are different things to do in this business, and you're living proof of that, and how you can enjoy it as a PGA professional.
For sure. Definitely, we wear a lot of hats, and to have a lot of irons in the fire, I think is very good as a PGA professional. And
Hmm.
don't get kind of pigeonholed in one area or another. If make sure, again, just being. I think it goes back to the mindset that I had coming up as an assistant professional, making sure that you become very well rounded. Don't just be the tournament guy. Don't just be make sure all the facets. So, when a certain job opens up, you have the skill set to be able to move and shake with the times. And I think that's very, very important for assistant professionals in this highly competitive job market that is out there right now.
Hmm. Well, Steve, congrats on the book. We'll look for the book coming out in May. Can we pre-order it now? Is that possible? Right.
That's possible, yes.
All right.
Go to movethatback.com and you can get it. It'll all ship on May 18th, and I'll personally sign the book for you, and you get a little cool ball marker with it, so you remind you to move your mark back. And
Awesome.
but it's very cool. Yeah, go to at movethatback.com and check that out. And yeah, it's Hey Tiger, you need to move your mark back, the title of the book. And yeah, it's just a perfect fitting title. The cover is really cool, and we found a great photo from a local photographer out there in Portland, and it worked out superb.
Great. Well, congrats on that. If anybody hasn't heard your podcast, you got some great guests on that. Some really interesting guests on there. You had a connection to me, Pete Trenum, the St. David's head professional from way back, who
Yeah,
predated me by a couple decades there, but he's a good friend of mine now. And so, but you've had a lot of great guests on there, so I enjoy listening. So I encourage anybody to listen to the podcast as well. So,
great. Thank you, Dean. No, really, really a pleasure, and happy to chat again anytime you want.
all right, thanks. We'll do it again, Steve. Appreciate it.